Sharing personal information through digital apps, internet browsers, and messaging services has become a normal and often unavoidable part of modern life. It's the cost of doing business in the digital world. Yet once we grasp the full scope of how our personal data is being harvested and exploited, we may think again. With an eye on the human condition, this is Insight. Many of us are unaware that most of our online activity, including the websites we visit, the posts we interact with, and the searches we conduct, is routinely monitored. The articles we read, along with associated personal preferences and behavioral patterns, are systematically collected and analyzed. This information is then used to construct highly detailed profiles capable of predicting our future actions. This practice, referred to as surveillance capitalism, is designed to anticipate and influence our individual decision-making. Increasingly viewed as a significant privacy concern, critics argue surveillance capitalism undermines personal autonomy and exploits our individual freedoms. Yet the original idea was not meant to function this way. In the year 2000, Google was still a fledgling startup. Among the early employees helping to define the company's identity was Paul Buchheit. He proposed a value statement for the company that stood out from typical corporate language. It simply said, "Don't be evil." Buchheit went on to explain his intent was for something that would be really different, something that once you put it in there would be hard to take out. The phrase "don't be evil" became the first line of the Google employees' code of conduct. It implied restraint, accountability, and moral responsibility. And at the time, that genuinely seemed to be the point. The code further explained that "don't be evil" meant providing our users unbiased access to information, focusing on their needs, and doing the right thing, following the law, acting honorably, and treating co-workers with courtesy and respect. For Buchheit, this moral stance was intended to provide a competitive advantage. He described it as a jab at rival companies who, in his view, were already exploiting users. "Don't be evil" appeared in a 2004 letter from Google's founders, affirming their belief that long-term success depended on doing good for the world, even if it meant sacrificing short-term gains. Google wasn't alone in framing the company as a force for good. The early 2000s saw the rapid rise of social networks, most notably Facebook. Founder Mark Zuckerberg later insisted that Facebook was never intended to be merely a business, but had a social mission to make the world more open and connected. He emphasized relationships as the foundation of society and claimed that Facebook existed primarily to strengthen them. For a time, this seemed plausible. Facebook allowed people to reconnect with old friends, stay in touch with distant family, and maintain relationships that would otherwise fade. For years, there was a widespread belief that major tech companies genuinely put users first. Their tools felt helpful, even generous. Google offered free services and Facebook connected the world. Yet history had already provided warnings. If only we had been willing to listen. In 19th century America, saloons in Midwestern manufacturing towns began offering free lunches. The deal was simple: buy a drink, get a meal. But the dishes were intentionally salty, made to encourage patrons to purchase more drinks. From this practice came the familiar saying, "There's no such thing as a free lunch." The same logic applies to big tech. As social psychologist Shoshana Zuboff has observed, these companies opened a kind of Pandora's box, one whose contents we're only now beginning to understand. The popularity of Google and Facebook ensured their products became embedded in the daily lives of billions of people. In the process, users generated an enormous byproduct: data. Search queries, location histories, photos, contact lists, browsing habits, every interaction added to a growing mountain of personal information. For Google, this data proved to be the solution to an existential problem. Early on, the company was burning through cash. What saved it was the realization that user behavior itself could be monetized. In an interview with the Harvard Gazette, Zuboff mentioned it was Google that first learned how to capture surplus behavioral data, more than what they needed for services, and used it to compute prediction products that they could sell to their business customers, in this case, advertisers. Harvesting personal and behavioral data for profit is what Zuboff dubbed surveillance capitalism. The concept is simple. The more a company knows about you, where you go, what you buy, and what you fear, what you desire, the more effectively it can influence your decisions. Ads become personalized, timely, and persuasive. The illusion of a free service remains, but the real transaction is hidden. You are not the customer. You are your data. You are the product. It was the risk of imminent failure that led Google to change its principles. Exceptional threats to their financial and social status appear to have awakened a survival instinct, Zuboff writes. The Google founders' response effectively declared a state of exception, in which it was judged necessary to suspend the values and principles that had guided Google's founding and early practices. In other words, the desire for profit and stability eclipsed their founding moral principles. Capitalizing on user data turned around their financial challenges. By the end of 2002, having improved these techniques, Google found their net revenue increased by 400%, turning their first profit. 2 years later, this process had produced more than a 3,500% increase in reported revenues. At first glance, this might not seem unreasonable. Businesses need revenue, and targeted advertising can even feel helpful. But the concern lies in how this data is collected and used. Much of it is gathered without meaningful consent, and its potential for manipulation far exceeds any apparent convenience. Google understood from the beginning that users would object if they knew what was happening. As Zuboff notes, these practices had to be done secretly. Right from the start, it was understood that users were unlikely to agree to this unilateral claiming of their experience. It was understood that these methods had to be undetectable. But when they were exposed, the backlash was swift and telling. Zuboff concludes, the rhetoric of the pioneering surveillance capitalists and just about everyone who has followed has been a textbook of misdirection, euphemism, and obfuscation. Despite claims of innovation and novelty, the course they've taken is sadly familiar. Many of us were initially drawn to Google's promises and free user-friendly tools. We signed up for Facebook, cherished our smartphones, perhaps even trusted them. Looking back, it may seem inevitable that any stated social mission for improving the world by these technologies was bogus. But at the time, it didn't feel that way. We knew there was no such thing as a free lunch, but we ate it anyway. This pattern is not new. Grand promises, bold visions, and hopeful ideals often collapsing under the weight of human self-interest. The digital age is merely the latest chapter in a long story of disillusion. What seems true and virtuous frequently reveals itself as self-serving propaganda. Google, Facebook, to say nothing of Microsoft, Amazon, and many others, have long abandoned the high moral principles they claimed at the outset. Yet the lesson remains. There are ways to act with integrity, with generosity, honesty, and restraint. Big Tech once claimed to believe this. The tragedy is not that those principles were unrealistic, but that they were so quickly abandoned. It's an example that can be useful to all of us. For the sake of our own lives, our families, and those with whom we come into contact, will we pause to consider the enduring value of choosing to not be evil? If you'd like to know more, visit our website vision.org and search for A Question of Values. For Insight, I'm David Hulme.